Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to another episode of MSLead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy Chad Fellers, we have casual talk about the challenges and successes in medical affairs with the most exciting and impactful professionals in pharma. As always, we have another great one for you today, so stick around.
Hello and welcome. Oh, you're picking your nose. I better not say hello.
I wasn't picking my nose. I was
Well, it looked like it. It looked like it. So are you ready, Mary? Okay.
born. That's what Lawrence Hart says.
No, you weren't. Okay. All right. Welcome back to another episode of MSLead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm your host, Chad Fellers, along with my nifty sidekick, Mary Morton. How are you, Mary?
I am terrific.
It is great to see you. I'm good. I missed you being with me for our last podcast. So glad to have you back. I missed the banter. So I didn't banter with myself in the last
People
conversation.
would be very curious what's going on with you if you were,
if I were bantering, yes, or talking, yes, all the different thoughts in my head, maybe you're actually, verbalizing them. But anyway, really don't want to.
Sorry, I was down in Denise's neck of the woods. Down in Florida.
Okay.
So,
I'm glad you had some relaxing time. Looks like you got a little bit of sun. So good. Well, let's get into it. I know we've got a special guest today, and our conversation is going to be just another great leadership conversation. I know that's been our focus here for the years that we've been here. And so talking about leading about the whole team and what that might look like. So before we get into that conversation, why don't you introduce our guest?
I am excited to. So today we have the lovely Denise Meyer. Denise is she got her PharmD from Wayne State University, which I was actually just by Wayne State by accident. We were in Detroit. Paige and I were seeing her. Anyway, this isn't about me. And she also has an executive MBA from Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. So Denise has more than 20 years of experience in pharma, working for a bunch of companies I've never heard of. Amgen, BMS, Takeda, Lilly, and I don't think I told you this before. The most recent one, Geron, I actually owned stock in. I've owned stock in that company for, I thought I got it at a bargain. I'll leave it at that. It was.
You thought.
You
thought. Okay.
Over 10 years of her experience has been in leadership and in field medical. She's built field medical teams. She's shaped the strategy along the way. One of the things I love about this woman is all of her diverse experience along the way. So her first role in pharma was actually in product management. And so she's had roles in marketing and commercial before moving into field medical. And so it kind of reminds me of when we had Lee Gervitz on, I think it was last year, who talked about how important all of that experience and perspective is completely invaluable when you are leading at an enterprise level. So I'm sure that's done a lot to shape your experience along the way with all of your accomplishments. Denise, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Mary and Chad. I'm thrilled to be here and to be able to have a great discussion with you both.
Yay, me too. So before we do that, as we typically do, we have some rapid fire questions for you. And the first of which is the one we always ask. And that is, since, I've got my baseball jersey on, typically as a situation where you have a walk-up song. What would your walk-up song be, Denise?
So Mary, I'm going to answer this walk-up song for today, or the one that I usually use, for the whole dog and pony events that we have inside pharma. So
okay, let's do both of them.
Okay, so it's been on my mind a lot lately, and I think this is a great song for it. And it's by REM.
I love
And
REM.
it's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine.
I love that one. Awesome. So that one's today. That's today's
topical, right? Because of, all the stuff that's going on external to our lives. But yeah, it's okay. And the one that I use, at your typical launch meetings and get-togethers when they ask for that, is something that I think has defined my career. And again, it's another fine Southern rocker, Tom Petty. And it's "I Won't Back Down."
I love that.
I like that.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if it's going to be, you know how it feels to be me. Is that?
You don't know how it feels.
Yeah, I didn't. I was guessing, but I like yours. I like the one you went with, Denise.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah. And I have a Gainesville connection, right? Because, I did my pharmacy residency and fellowship right there in Gainesville, where he's from.
Oh, right.
Never saw him there. Never saw him in town. But,
I never saw him live either. It breaks my heart. The late, great Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're getting some other questions.
Okay.
Just 2 more questions, and then, we've got a lot of really cool stuff to talk about today. If you could have any job or career other than the one that you've had, what would you have done?
It's hard to narrow it down to just one thing. So,
okay. Well, let's see.
So for me, here's a passion of mine that most people don't know. And that is designing and building houses, right? So I guess architect is closest to it, because it's just how everything comes together, but doing it at the same time while making it look innovative or look different. So I think if I didn't do what I did in STEM, I think architecture would be at the top of my list.
Oh, I like that too.
It's good.
So last question. If you could give your 25-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
That would be, try new things. Never stop learning, because and you'll see that as a theme, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so that's what's interesting is I feel like maybe you went back and told your 25-year-old self that already, because it seems like that's what you've been living. So awesome. All right. You get to get into it now.
Yeah, let's do. Well, so why don't we get started? I can't wait to start with the learning more kind of your perspective around leading the whole team. Before we do that and get into questions, would love to hear any kind of key takeaways you wanted to leave with our listeners. We like to open with that. Just so if you have any, feel free to share.
Sure. So I think my big key takeaway, and the one that I always talk about with my teams, is, it's a pair of traits that I think are super critical, not just for an MSL or field medical leaders, but, more broadly. And that is resilience and curiosity. So having those qualities, cultivating them, developing them, will really serve you well. And I can talk to it when we're talking about leading the whole team, how we can integrate those in. I think they're super important. And the other key takeaway was, what would you tell your 25-year-old self? That was what I had written down was, try new things. Always think of a frame of, if you haven't done it, don't necessarily be intimidated. Don't let that hold you back. A lot of times people are like, oh, this is what I do. This is what I do really well. And they kind of paint themselves into a box. But give yourself permission to step outside that box and take a chance.
And that's really driven by the leader that you have as well, right? And that mindset. So let's go ahead and just dig right into it. So leading the whole team, right? That could mean, I think, several different things, but would love to hear, like, what do you mean by leading the whole team?
Yeah. So I think about it in multiple dimensions, Chad. So team, it's very easy to define team as the MSLs who report to you, or the MSLs and region
Yeah.
directors who report to you, depending on the role that you've got. But I think of it much more holistically. Team, we're all in it together. So it's who I report to, who they report to. It's the whole environment that's around us because it's going to affect us. And we have to be effective two-way communicators, you
Hmm.
know, in and up through the team and out, and vice versa. So the whole team, think of it as like the universe, right? So, and you've got layers. The closest team members are the ones that are directly reporting to you, you're directly responsible to. Next, who you're communicating to, who you're reporting to. And then outwardly, who else in the company is your function or your team interacting with?
That's so leading up, leading down, I guess. If you think of it in those terms, right? But I think it's just or with an organizational structure rather, and communication style and keeping an open line, if you will. It's almost like I tell MSLs all the time, the scientific bridge, or you're the bridge between the KOL, external and internal. It's the same way, right? I think
Mhm.
you're talking about in the same vein, if you will,
Yeah.
from a leadership standpoint. Yeah,
Exactly. So, you can say it's the bridge, it's your two-way channel of communication,
yeah,
but it's knowing how to communicate. So speaking the language of the person
mm,
or the role that you're communicating with, right? And being an
yeah,
effective translator and making sure that the right level of energy goes along with those words too, right? So
yeah.
up, down, sideways, doesn't matter.
That's right.
This may be kind of like a rhetorical question, but maybe you can just kind of expand on it. Communication is key. I think we say that a lot. But, why do you think that kind of communication is such a critical part of leading an MSL team in especially in this sort of cross-functional world that you lead in?
Mhm. Yeah. And Mary, I think it's no matter what size company you're working for, you're going to have some amount of matrix structure around you because field medical has a defined function, right? We go out, we talk to HCPs, and we bring insights back in, we share information out, but we're also networking and working alongside our partners in the field, right? So from sales, from market access, HUR, what have you. They're part of your network. And internally too, you see bringing it in, right? Comes up to your manager, comes up or comes into me and I have to take that back through my network. And so, communication is so essential in trying to understand exactly how to manage that, the channel in which it's done, right? Everyone's got verbal, you write your reports, right? Put your input in. So you've got to be effective verbal, but you got to be effective in writing. But more importantly, I think the further you go in in your career, or if you want to advance and grow and really progress, you have to develop, the sensitivity to the tone, communication styles. When I was getting into networking effectively a moment or two ago, it's all of that. I think that goes into it.
Yeah, you actually just touched on something that I was going to ask as part of a follow up question. You mentioned something in your initial response around communication style, and it's not only the style that you speak in, right, but how do people receive information. Um, uh, 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 what automatically comes to mind is the social style handbook,
Mhm.
which I don't know if you've read that. Some of our listeners, if you have as well too, there's basically 4 different social styles. Some people want to have explanations, if you will, to every single thing. Some people just give me the facts and let me go. So how do you communicate those? How do you know? And it requires knowing your audience,
Mhm.
and how they like to receive information. That's a key as well too, because we think we can be communicating things clearly, and sometimes, or at least in my experience, and how I'm trying to do that doesn't resonate for some reason or another. And a lot of times it's because of how people receive information. So I thought that was really a key point that you highlighted a second ago, is understanding the different types of, or the different ways of communicating and how important that is.
Yeah, Chad, absolutely. So I think if you've been in pharma any amount of time, everyone's gone through that, typing or insights into personal effectiveness or your colors or understanding, trying to get at your communication style. And there are many variations on the same thing, to your point, with the 4 basic styles. Yeah, it's that sensitivity to know who you're in front of. And it takes work. You have to work at it
Yeah,
because when you're under pressure, you're going to revert and it's going to become far more challenging for you to keep things in mind, communicate effectively. And so practice makes perfect, right? To
yeah,
remind folks, myself too. And it's also, um, it's the art of communication, right? So,
that's right.
you can
That's right.
do all the reading, but it's the art too.
Well, and so even just thinking about this on the recent podcast that I did was around redefining field medical excellence, and I'm just even thinking and incorporating AI. And here's a basic way that you could utilize that, right? I mean, I think you could. I think we take um, those personality assessments and things like that, and they kind of get shelved, or we may put it as part of a color or whatever, as part of our email signature and things like that. But how to actually put that into application? I mean, now you could talk to Copilot and say, "Hey, I
Yeah.
am speaking to someone with this particular. How can I effectively communicate?" Or I'm needing to give this information. So that's just another thought that I had. I should go back and add that to kind of the whole presentation that I gave, is being able to leverage those types of things to help increase it, right. You said your head knowledge is one thing and reading about it, but how to put those things into practice. That's a potential way that that
Yeah.
could be done. So anyway, just a random thought there, but
No,
of
it's a
tying
good
things
tool,
together.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Did I have a
oh,
question
go
though.
ahead. Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
say that some people put like their
Hmm.
color or their whatever in their auto signatures?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
There's
never
some
seen that.
companies
Yeah.
that, yeah, there's some
Yeah.
companies when you go through that whole testing, they'll
Yeah.
put that so you can know how to. The challenge is, right, you go through a day workshop and that's it, right? I mean, there's no follow-up test or any of those types of things. And so if you're not prioritizing that, it's hard to really kind of pull those things through, I think, or there are very few rather that will pull those types of things through, at least in my experience. Denise, you may have a little different experience with
Now,
that.
I think it's pretty similar. And you're right. If you don't have a visual cue or reminder um, to help you out, and I've been at 2 companies that have done something similar with your email signatures, your color
Yeah.
line. It's just it's there as an aid to help you understand because again, written communication, it's the same thing. People have preferences about how much they want to read, right? Nowadays,
Yeah.
so much just content's being pushed at us. Everybody wants to do TLDR, right?
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah.
So back to this concept about leading the whole team. So
Mhm.
you talked about, I mean, communication beyond those in your immediate team, if you will. But let's focus more around, I guess, the immediate team, whether it's your regional directors or even, I guess, their family members, if you will, too, right? As you're thinking about them. So how do you make sure, or in your experience, making sure that each team member gets attention, if you will,
Mhm.
right? So development, coaching, opportunities. It's so easy to go to those that are go getters and gonna put in. They do things the way that you want them to do. They communicate in the style that you want them to, et cetera. But love to hear your thoughts about making sure you're being inclusive as much as possible.
Yeah, Chad, great question. This is one of my passions. So, yeah, it's very easy to use your go-tos or your top performers for everything. That is a lazy manager. I'll be controversial or provocative and say that. Um, but more importantly, it's visibility across the team too, right? If the goal is really going from good to great and having the best
Mm,
team that you possibly can, you want to make sure that everyone is engaged. You want to make sure that everyone's motivated. You want to have the foresight to understand your folks on your team, to know what their passions are, what gets them energized, and to be able to look for opportunities to match up to those individual needs. Because on a typical team, you're going to have a variety of different sets of experiences, different personalities. And your job as manager is to make sure that everyone gets the right amount of attention. I won't say
Yeah.
equal amounts of attention because sometimes people need more, but it's the
Yeah.
right amount, what's right for them. And that's again coming stylistically back to how you as a leader operates. And the more understanding you have of your individuals and truly getting to know them, the more effective you're going to be as their leader and as leader of the whole team, right? So we'll talk about who's right in front of you because they talk, they see what's happening with each other. So if your goal is to make a great cohesive team, you want to make sure that they see what's happening with each other, they know what's happening with them, and more importantly, they see you talking the talk and walking the walk, to use that expression.
Yeah.
That
That's really good. Yeah.
when when you talk about things like psychological safety and setting a fair environment, um, I'm sure if you had a team of 8 people and 4 of them saw that you gave every project to these other 4 people all the time and nothing to them, or gave them like throwaway projects, I mean, they're going to start talking amongst themselves like, why does that person always get the cool project? And what, I feel like I'm just getting pandered to. I'm not valued. I mean, you can totally create a bad culture across your team, and then there becomes like an us versus them and all of that. But I can already tell that you're really keen on this stuff. So I have a good question for you. I think it's a good question. Um, have you ever identified a strength in someone, or pegged them for a project, and they're like, "Why me? Why do you think I could do this?"
Mhm.
I would love to know if there's been a situation like that.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Um, I do have a good anecdote to share about that,
Oh,
and that's all about when I when at the beginning I talked about curiosity, being curious about your people, sitting down,
Sure.
listening, having them tell you stuff, maybe not work related, but one of the questions I always like to ask folks is, so tell me something that you wouldn't think I would know, or tell me something from your childhood that really motivated or excited you, right? Because that gets you a little bit into their inner workings, just like your question about what would I do if I didn't do this, right? So um, I had a project opportunity for a person on my team that would require them to uh, be very efficient with collating a lot of data, being able to manage multiple inputs, still maintain their high performance of what they were doing in the field, and be able to summarize, package it up nicely, and give a presentation at the end. And so the person that I tapped for that was a truly, she was, very effective performer, doing really well, quieter individual, right? So would come up and offer suggestions, didn't really jump in and drive things in team calls. But during our one-on-one, what I had discovered, what she shared with me, is that when she was in high school, she was actually the drum major. So someone who is able to pick up, take charge, lead folks, and do it in a way which, if you had only seen her in a work environment, you would have never noticed that. So, you know, when I offered the project to her, and she was in typical fashion, she's like, I want to make sure that I do it right, and I'm not sure that I can do everything that you need. And I'm like, yeah, I think we'll work through it together. So by giving her the resource that she needed of my time, and the types of check-ins that she would need. She built her confidence grew pretty quickly, and she did an outstanding job. So that's
Mm.
just, kind of tying together, getting to know your folks, looking for qualities that you can match up, and being able to give a development opportunity at the same time.
And I think it really could even start with things. I mean, I completely agree with you. I would say, how do we even incorporate the conversations that we have, the questions we ask in an interview process, and sort of think about, I think one of the things I've seen as a challenge with the industry is the different parts of the organization working in silos, project management, more of a focus. I'm going to be clinical development. I'm going to get something through, get it approved, hand it off, instead of the field medical being partner of them through that process, because they're so set on these things, just like the interview process, right? We think of that as one particular thing. What if you started there and you're intentional on asking questions beyond just work experience that help shape and give you an understanding of what motivates, what drives, and how you can leverage that? When I think about, oftentimes there'll be, in the interview process, you'll have a candidate say, like, what are you missing from your team? And I hate that. I really don't care for that question, because just because they were the Viva expert in their CV or resume doesn't mean that they wanted to be the Viva expert. That means that they may have been assigned that, and I don't want to put them in a position that they don't want to be in the future. So it's more about understanding, like, what drives them or the things that they want, and helping them plug and play from that perspective versus the experiences that they've had. Yes, you can utilize those where appropriate, but how do we incorporate that into the entire story? Similar to what you're suggesting. Of course, you want to spend time prioritizing, being intentional with time on one-on-ones and things like that to reaffirm some of those things. But how can we start from the very get-go? I don't do that very well, or I'm not intentional in doing that. Maybe I do it through some of the process from time to time, but I'm not intentional. So you're challenging me to think about things in a little bit of a different light. So talk about, one of the things I've always enjoyed is identifying things that people don't see in themselves, and figuring out what they want to do. We talked earlier before we started, right, about what we want to do when we grow up, or what, as we're still adventuring. So talk to us a little bit about that whole process as well too.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I'll pull into some elements of my career to illustrate.
Sure. That's great.
It's when I think about this, and to your point, what do you want to be when you grow up, or how do you integrate various experiences or various aspects of what it is that we're doing at work or we're doing professionally. Uh, you know, I came from a clinical and scientific background, right? Had the clinical practice career, all of that. And then when I made my pivot into industry, it wasn't through medical affairs, which is that's the standard pathway. I try to, sometimes I say that I take the backwards way in, or, I always open the other door. That's okay. So I went in through the commercial side, right? So, and did that, but it was very intentional, right? And I think the link, or the thing there, is because I had that great scientific and clinical background and understanding, and the ability to communicate effectively with different kinds of people, and some different experiences, right? In addition to the clinical, having been on AdWords, speaker bureaus, things like this, even while I was a clinician, I was able to pull all of that together into my first role in industry. And I think analogous, when we think about bringing folks into our teams and we're hiring, to your point, the interview process, we're looking for people who've got, here's your tech specs on your background, right degree, right sets of experiences. But importantly, when you're talking to them, listening to them, and hearing what they're saying about their accomplishments, you can also be cataloging all of that too for your own self, into your understanding of them. It's being able to help them realize too that as their interest grows in what they're doing, or if they want to progress, right? Because when you get someone who's new to being an MSL, they're like, okay, I want to do this. And then of course, hey, of course I want to go manage MSLs, and without realizing how many other different things there are that you can do
Yeah.
with that field medical experience. And
Yeah.
you might be able to match it up with something that they've done before. You might see that spark in what they're doing and help point them, because it's everyone progresses and evolves at a different rate. And as we all have the different leaders interact with us, we're going to take different things away. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, Chad. So I'm going to
No,
pull
you're
back
good.
to
You're
you
good.
and
We're
see if
always
there's.
all over the
You're good.
place.
Yeah, that's right. You fit
You're
right
fitting
in.
right
You're good.
in.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine. You're good. So I think you're exactly right. I think the environment that we create for our teams is so important. The freedom to I always talk about freedom to fail, but having that type of to give them, you talked about earlier, the tools to be able to succeed, to the availability if they have questions or help guide through the process, not take them through it, let them own it, but still be able to shepherd them. I guess if maybe that's the right word I'm looking for with that. But that gives the confidence, because if not, they might stay stuck in the same spot that they are, and it may not be where they get to experience their giftings as much too. I think that that's the thing. How can you be in a spot that doesn't feel like work? Right. And that's where we want to get to. That's where I want to get to, where I don't think it's laborious, but I'm enjoying it because I'm getting to spend the majority of my time in an area that provides me great feedback or things like that, intrinsic, right? Um, so it's easy to talk about the good performers, right? Or those, and I know they're different types of performers, but what about one that seems to be struggling? Can you talk a little bit about any lessons learned with, or maybe you don't have any that have struggled in the past. Maybe that's pie in the sky version. But how do you handle those?
Sure. So, and that's a pretty big bucket. What do you mean by struggling? So here's how I think about that. So it's and one idea popped into my head while you were talking. Yeah, you can support, encourage, give people the resources, check in, helping them build their confidence. There's another archetype or different type of person that I've had on my teams. People who would just charge right in, all enthusiasm. That's it. They're going because they're convinced
Yeah.
they know everything and the answers, right? So, and sometimes that's right, and sometimes they just don't understand their limits. And so, how you how you work with them and develop them or help position them and their talents so that they recognize that might not be as uh, they might not be everything in all dimensions, right? So I'm trying to
Yeah.
be
That's good.
inclusive here, or whatever the right word is these days. That so you can have people who do that. So they just charge forward, and you've got to be able to help them stop, think, reassess, pull back, and then help complement those skills, because that ambition, that drive is an important quality. And you have to be able to help them calibrate how to set up that ambition, because that could lead to inter-team dynamics that might not be the
Hmm.
best. And so when I'm thinking about making sure that the whole team is developing, you want to look for things like that. We can also talk about, a more traditional, a person who starts to struggle in role. And that's when I get out my diagnostics list. Let's start and think about this. And were they someone who had previously been doing okay, and all of a sudden hits a spell, and it's like, okay, so let's have a chat. Let's figure out what's going on. Or is this
Hmm.
someone, as I'm sure that all of us have come into inheriting a team, and you sit down, read everyone's development plans and their year-end summaries, and you speak with them, and you're going to have the spectrum of folks, strong performers, solid performers, and performers who might need individual attention. And
Hmm.
so it's looking at those folks who need the individual attention and trying to diagnose what's going on. external, internal to work.
Yeah. What about when it's not you that sees it? Maybe it may be someone within other leadership or your cross-functional partners or things like that. They come to you and provide that type of feedback. How do you handle that?
That's a different set of diagnostic criteria. What's their motivator? So, it's I think that's even more challenging than your direct reports. It's when someone comes and complains or brings up feedback about someone not delivering, right? Or not meeting their needs. And so it's trying to understand, you know, who's saying it? Why are they saying it? What's their motivator? What's their position? What's the incident? Was it a one-off? Is it a repeated pattern? A lot of times it comes down to, the different personalities trying to communicate, right? That's one
Sure.
type of fix, right? We can identify that, we can work together. And even, I'm not a magician. I can't make everyone communicate effectively with each other. I wish, I keep looking for my magic wand.
Maybe that's the magician and architect.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, with my rainbow pony. But anyhow, it's you're not always going to like everyone you work with. You're not
That's right.
always going to get along with everyone you're going to work with. But what you want to be able to do is work effectively, right?
Yeah.
So recognize stylistic differences. Recognize that, hey, some people are going to be a challenge, and that's okay, right? You just have to put it into context. And, for some people who may be, struggling for a different reason, and I think we've all seen it on our teams, sometimes people come into the MSL role with different expectations of what MSLing is all about.
Hmm.
And so it's either helping them understand and recalibrate, or sometimes they might be in the wrong role. And so
Yeah.
helping them find something else to do.
Hmm. Yeah, feedback is a gift, right? And pressing into those things before they fester can really be.
Yeah.
I've done both ways. I've tried not to in ways and avoid some of those things and assume positive intent to my detriment, and then definitely want to assume positive intent to be clear. I think, or maybe reject maybe some signs that maybe, hey, this is not going in the right direction, and it will come back and bite you if you don't. So appreciating that feedback as a gift, both positive and negative, if you're truly invested in developing those, and that's our responsibility as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, really, really good feedback there.
I'd love to bring something up, and this is actually a discussion that Denise and I had like offline, and share as much as you're comfortable with, if you don't mind, Denise. But as we're talking about difficult feedback and difficult this and talking about the managing up and down and over and whatever. So, talking about, having great bosses and people you mesh with. And then, every once in a while, I'm sure everybody has had someone they reported to that was challenging or difficult or whatever expletive you would like to use. So, but one of the things you said to me, and if you want to expound, great, um, is, you even if you have a difficult or challenging person you report to, there's something to learn from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, can you like share a little bit about that with the listeners?
Sure. So I am happy to say that I've had two individuals that were remarkably challenging to work for. I've learned.
You're happy to say. You're
I'm
happy to
happy to say
say.
it's only two.
Oh, that is only two. Okay,
Only
all
And
right,
it's in the
good. Okay,
past.
And it's in the past. It's in the past. Positive intent for the future, right?
Right, exactly.
No, it's I think that's really tough because I've experienced really great bosses and very supportive and all of that. For me, I'll focus in on one who the person I had been working for got promoted to a different role, right? New person comes in, they're stylistically, communication style, just, their background, their sets of experience, just as far removed from mine as possible, which is, it's not necessarily bad. It's good. Again, I come back to curiosity, right? So in this case, I ended up having to work with this individual, report to them for 14 months. And before I was able to move on to my next role. And I learned so much and developed my resilience in that because I had to flex my communication style significantly. And even flexing, would just get us to okay, learned what they wanted, short bullet points, no story, very concise, timely, weekly reports, what have you. And they would not offer up much feedback, and I'm a person who thrives on a nice two-way dialogue. But ultimately, we agreed to focus in because that was the key that I finally found to working effectively with this individual. It's okay. Here's my weekly target. Here's my monthly target. Here's what I need to accomplish, for the rest of the year because they came in at mid-year. So being able to do that and go through almost on a checklist-oriented approach, and with making revisions when it needed to be, which they were uncomfortable with. That was a tool that I found effective. It was still never going to get us to a place where this is an individual I'd want to go out and have drinks with, after work. But and I don't think that they were real happy about inheriting a bunch of people, which I was the most unlike them because again, my background, people in pharma either go, "You're on the commercial side, you're on the medical side." Yeah, I've done both.
It's like the
And
field of dreams.
it's
Can't
it's
touch
like
across.
people, yeah, exactly. So it just weirds them out. I'll just say it. It just weirds them out sometimes. People are like, I don't understand this.
I need to.
Okay.
I've always wanted to do a podcast on how to navigate. I'm not saying I've ever had this, to be clear, but I've heard people that have had this. Like, how do you deal with a narcissistic boss, right? Or how do you process through some of those types of things, right?
Is
That's
it find
definitely
another job?
I mean, I really think it really is.
Yeah.
As far as self-preservation and things like that. But yeah, I think some of those things, Denise, you're right. It's hard to see it in the moment when you have bosses like that, that you just can't see any kind of path forward in ways, or it's completely, you just can't win over. Right. So I think it's one of those things, a couple of things you can't, um, I think it can help equip you in multiple ways. One, help you understand what it is that you really want in a boss. So from moving forward. Number two, are there certain aspects that you know how to be able to navigate those situations in the future because you've learned the hard way, because they've not communicated very well in your previous experience with that type of boss. Is another thing. And then what is it that you need to incorporate? Are there any aspects that you can incorporate into your style that will help speak to those that have that type, whether it's your direct reports or those cross-functionally? So I guess, but it's hard to see all those things in the moment, right? Yes, those are never fun to have. But we all seem to thrive when we can get some of that feedback and connection. And it's a challenge. It's a journey. 14 months, is that what you said?
14 months.
Or so? That's a long time. It's a long time.
It was, but ultimately, Chad, so what it forced me to do, or what it helped me to do, drag me kicking and screaming, was to really crisp up, short, effective communications. It really made me do my own personal inventory, figure out different tools, look at, my peers who also reported to this individual to see some were more successful than others. And so to model and adapt some of what I was seeing going on. So it was you could look at it of, I hate going to work every day, it's terrible. Or you could go, what am I going to do to progress today? Right.
That's
So
right.
it's all your frame of mind.
That's right. It's one step at a time, right? It's one of those, you can't snap your fingers and make it all go away or all get better. It's like what you have to measure success in much smaller terms, I think, and just making progress forward, like you mentioned. That's great advice. really good conversation. As we're wrapping things up, one more question for you that comes to mind. More about challenges, and it's a little bit on what we just discussed, but how have some challenges shaped your own leadership growth? Is there anything beyond what you just shared that you think would be important for our listeners to hear?
Sure, I'll offer it up. And I found myself early in my career advanced to a leadership position probably before I was ready for it, right? And it's still on the clinical side of things. I trained to be an oncology clinical coordinator, right? Clinical pharmacist. And I was tapped to go into, we were moving to a care center model. So I became, the leader of the oncology care center pharmacy. I inherited having 8 reports, 3
Oh,
of which were unionized, and
Oh,
3 indirect reports who had been at the institution for like 30 years, right? So
wow.
here I am, earlier in much earlier in my career, having a diversity of folks, unionized and not, very senior and not. And now I had to be responsible, write their annual reviews, do all
Mm,
of this. And so, the person who advanced me into that role saw that potential in me that I didn't realize was right there. And then I had to really, step up. And here's the other piece of context. This is in New York City where this happened. The New
wow.
Yorkers are not patient folks.
No.
So, and I did it. I surprised them. I surprised myself. So, yeah, that was something that surprised me. I was able to be good at it, but it also fed my passion for then pulling it forward, right? So develop yourself, develop others, continue to grow your career.
One of your core things that you mentioned at the very beginning, I think, are it's one of the core traits I'm always looking for in conversations is curiosity, right?
Mhm,
How do you maintain a level
mhm,
of curiosity, which is what you've done? I think the more you can create opportunities for your teams to be able to have these different experiences, helps them to be able to develop resilience, like you mentioned, right? Stretching them beyond what they're comfortable with, stretching ourselves beyond what we're comfortable with, helps build that skill or thicken our skin, however you want to look at it with that. And then being able to bring all our experiences in the past, how they can really shape who we are today and even in the future as well too. Not every path is a straight and narrow. I mean, a lot of times there's a lot of curves and different things, but we can always take away a little bit of something from each one to shape us who we are as leaders today. So Denise, thanks so much for spending some time sharing just your experiences, the importance of serving your entire team, developing all, as well as personal development, maintaining a high level of curiosity. You've really challenged me today. Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, it's been great being here. Really appreciate the two of you engaging and helping me share some of the key things that I've observed in my career.
I love it. Love it. Well, thanks again to our listeners for joining us for another casual conversation here on MSLead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. Remember, leaders don't develop in isolation. We need each other. So until next time, lead well.